Hi all. Um, so this is going to be a video that I'm going to make because over on Rengar means there's been, quite a lot of talk. Uh, after a Rioter decided to talk to us again after the long lull that Rioter hasn't been talking to us, there is a different Rioter who is now talking to us, listening to us. And it's like pretty, I feel like, important to really just get across like everything, like every grievance, every I feel like misunderstanding there is, or something that they're just not getting, or something that I feel like they're just not quite understanding, etc. And so I decided to kind of make this just some of my thoughts on Rengar. I've played thousands of hours on the champion, poured my heart and soul into him, and I just want to go ahead and put a disclaimer here before I continue forth. Me and many other, I just about say most Rengar players were not against him getting reworked. We just don't want the rework that we got. I think the best way to put it is, like, if this new, reworked Rengar, if it came out as like a new champion, I think, most people would think, hey, that's pretty cool. Has a couple of problems with it, kind of OP, but, pretty cool champion. Who am I kidding? Kind of OP, really OP. But anywho, but the thing is, he just doesn't feel like Rengar. So let's continue forward, before I get caught, or before I spend too long talking just here. So, firstly, the passive. It's not too bad. It just has, like, as we see here, it just doesn't feel as rewarding as the old passive. With the old passive, we had, the increased jump range at 6 stacks. Then we got the increased ult duration. Then we got, the increased move speed. It just felt satisfying. It really felt like, Rengar was getting a serious upgrade the more trophies you got, that you were really snowballing. And the new one, it's just very bland. Not to say it's not strong, because it's most definitely incredibly strong. But it's unsatisfying, because early on it makes hardly any difference. I mean, I get 1 AD plus 1% bonus AD. Ooh, of course you don't want to make it too strong because it's just one trophy, but something like that is just not satisfying. Like, until you get 3 or 4 stacks, his trophies, his passive it's just not very. It just doesn't feel significant at all. Like, it feels like I don't have a passive until I get 3 or 4 trophies. And another thing is, but this is supposedly getting added soon, and that is the quotes. Whenever he got to the point of where something would upgrade, getting the increased jump range or whatever on the pre-rework Rengar, he would say a special quote, and those were removed for some reason. But Riot Shepherd has said that he wasn't aware of that, and they should be adding them back in. Alright, now let's talk about some of the good. I think having to get unique trophies, you don't get them, you don't get multiple trophies from killing the same person over and over. I think that's a really good idea. I do think a bit more could be done with it. Say someone on the enemy team is especially strong, say they have a fed vein or something. I feel like they're maybe somehow put in some extra incentive to go after the strongest prey, But it's not a necessary thing. It's just a little something. Alright, so let's continue forth to Q. Oh man, there's gonna be a lot on this. So, this is something that most of us are the most adamant about, that it gets reverted or huge changes. Alright, let's just take it bit by bit. It is much much more clunky and awkward than the previous pre-rework Q, due to the dash part of it, as well as the cast time, which I believe is 0.35 seconds, and the special auto that he has after he Qs. The auto, starting with the auto, it was made, according to Shepard, to make it, to signify it being an auto cancel, as well, of course, as Repertoire putting it in, for old nostalgia purposes, that we would still have our old Q, even, not actually, but, in spirit. But in reality, it just makes the auto after that auto, after the special auto, the auto after that, it just feels extremely awkward and clunky. Like Scar even mentioned, sometimes it looks like Rengar is just frozen standing there, but he's still, in the auto animation, it just doesn't always even look like he's autoing afterwards, and it's does not feel good at all. And it also doesn't have any real similarity or particles, sounds, anything of the old Q on, the auto. It just has the animation and it's not satisfying at all while creating so much clunkiness. And alright, yeah, this isn't really a big point, it's just more of a little nitpick. But in his Q, he kinda does a slash into a stab forward kinda. Which doesn't really make sense though, because you use daggers to stab people. You don't you don't use a dagger like a sword or anything. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that he kinda does a slash. But anywho, just a little nitpick there. Alright. Continuing on, the new Q, it does just as much damage as the old one. It probably does even more early on, and it doesn't fit into his kit as near as well. And to provide context for that, using it during the stealth, like old Q, whenever you were ulted, you could Q before the jump, and you would automatically doing it during the jump. You wouldn't have to use it during the jump or after the jump. But of course, on the new Q, you use it, and of course, Rengar just Qs and bye-bye stealth. Of course, it also cannot be used mid-air, which is extremely unsatisfying. Balance-wise, yes, I understand it, currently with how Rengar is. It's also not, but it has other problems. Visually unimpressive, as well as sound. This is the main thing, that sound, it sounds like he's scraping his daggers, across each other or something. It doesn't sound like he's hitting someone with it. And it's too slow coming out. I understand the reason for making it skill shot, as well as having that 0.35 second cast time, to according to Riot, help with the frustration that ADC players or other squishy players had whenever they actually got jumped by Rengar, because they said that the old Q just, since you could pre-buffer it and then it just came out so fast, said it was unfair, which I can kind of understand, but and even then, it's this whole point that they made with the Q, changing it because it was unhealthy on the old one, it's completely counterintuitive, contradictory, probably would be the better word here, to what they said, because they make the Q feel so awkward and bad, or the ability itself isn't bad, but I'm talking bad as clunkiness. And then turn around and compensate, with giving him the free crit on ult, and that is the main criminal in his kit that just has no place, should not exist. And I'm going to get to that later, the crit on his ultimate. Alright, anywho, continuing forth. The good on new Q. Having the dash on the ability, it is an interesting idea, but yet again, as I mentioned earlier, it also is a major reason why it's, clunky. And it felt like, while an interesting idea, it just kind of felt executed pretty poorly. As Q was it feels lackluster. Yet again, it does a lot of damage, but it just feels lackluster. Oh, also, something I should add as well. AoE is kind of nice, but yet again, unbalanced with how much damage that it does. Being able to, one-shot 2 people at the same time, is unbalanced. Oh boy, alright, here we go. Rengar's W. It is the main reason why Bruiser Rengar exists, and why it's so strong. And of course, starting off with the bad, being able to press W, and then empower W for 100% heal, or 140% heal if you have Spirit Visage. It's just unbalanced like that. There's nothing you can say to defend it. That's just unbalanced. 140% heal. It's just ridiculous. And next, we have the CC immunity, which yet again is just ridiculous. It was a lesson that apparently was not learned with Malzahar. Having a CC immunity ability in a champion, it just makes them unbalanceable to the point of you have to completely weaken the rest of their kit to make up for it. And Rengar, that's one of the problems with Rengar right now, is he's so strong because he's strong in other areas of his kit as well as having that CC immunity. And that will get nerfed though, and I'm afraid, as I see here, C-Malz, I'm afraid he's going to become like Malzahar, having the rest of his kit super weak just because he has, a broken CC immunity in his kit. Now, onto some of the good. The cleanse. I'm not talking about, the actual CC immunity, 1.5 seconds, you can't get CC'd. Just using the empowered W to get out of a stun or CC binding, whatever. That was a good idea. Just being able to use it to pop out of something like a QSS. That's fine. But the cleanse combined with CC immunity is way too strong. Also, the heal, I feel like it was a good thing to keep. It felt, satisfying in old Rengar, and it's, I feel like it was a good idea to keep it on the new one as well. But, as said previously, it's just overtuned, it heals for way too much, and it allows Bruiser Rengar to just soak up damage while, being very tanky, while also being able to do a lot of damage, and then he can just keep getting his health back by pressing W, and empowered W. And yet again, like I said earlier, it's combined with Spirit Visage, it's just broken. Just broken. Ebola. Hehe. No real. I don't have that much bad to say, really. It needs the least amount of change. Easily. The good? This is the best part that they did to his kit. The clunkiness on the pre-rework Bola was fixed. It feels so much better than the old one. The bad, the damage nerf to it from the old one, it kinda, as I see here, it kinda feels like they just did that because they overtuned the damage on the Q and the ult crit, and I feel like if you reduce the damage on this, or in the case of ult crit, completely remove it, but again, that'll be talked about in a minute. But if you, change the Q's damage as well as removing ult crit, they said they wanted to have his damage more spread throughout his kit instead of just in one ability. But they didn't follow that at all, as most of his damage still comes from his Q and then of course the ult crit. And the Bola had its damage nerfed, so now you're even more reliant on the Q. And oh, something else I forgot to add. Currently, I feel this is just more because of imbalances in his kit, but empowered Bola is almost hardly ever used. Simply because empowered W or empowered Q is just almost always better. 95% of the time, empowered W or empowered Q is the way to go. There's very few instances where I would actually end up using the empowered Bola. And no cast time, it's still the dream. Honestly, at this point, it's just the meme. It's the meme dream. But, you can't give up on your dreams. Having no cast time on the Bola would still be godlike. It would make it amazing. and I think he does kind of deserve it, since you can't, the reason why they put it there in the first place was because, they said they didn't like him being able to root people from stealth. Well, now that, we don't get, or now that we can't keep stacks, of course you can't do that anymore. So, yeah, even though it's not that necessary though. Because currently it's pretty good. It's pretty fine. Alright. If you want to get rid of Bruiser Rengar, you have to do something to the ultimate. There's no way of getting around it unless you just somehow got completely, as Shepard mentioned, unless they completely got his base damages and just gave him bonus, really big bonus AD scalings, which they said they didn't want. So if you don't want to do that, then you're gonna have to change the ultimate. So let's talk about the ultimate. It gives way too much information to the enemy. Having the extended indicator is incredibly, a big boost for the enemy already, but them also being able to tell the direction that he's coming from, giving them that much information, especially on a stealth champion, it's just not something you can do. Not for an assassin. That's another one of the reasons why Bruiser Rengar has risen to such prominence, is because it's just not an ultimate that was made for an assassin. It's an ultimate that was made, for a bruiser or a tank to be able to, jump onto the person or the enemy team, etc. And, begin doing bruiser and tank Rengar things. CCing, doing lots of damage, etc. And while also being able to soak up a lot of damage with the W. And the only way you can really keep, I already mentioned, the only way, or the only reason why Rengar isn't super weak due to his new ultimate is because they just completely overloaded the rest of his kit, with damage and, of course, one of the biggest, crimes, the CC immunity on W. So continued, it feels extremely unsatisfying to use compared to the old one. The 2-second delay, on ult startup, it just feels bad. I think it should be, like how it was, where, it would take it a quarter of a second or so, half a second, if he wasn't being damaged to get the ultimate working. It also doesn't make a lot of sense to me, the fact that the moment that he presses R, they immediately get the eyes above their head. Because he's not even stealth yet, and he can't jump, so why would they have the eyes above their head yet? That also doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The camouflage as well, it just, I understand why they did it, of course, because old Rengar Ultimate, with how pink wards work now, it would be extremely broken. Even though I think there's a couple changes they could make to the old Ultimate, then it would work fine, but anyway, we're not here to talk about old Rengar as much as the problems with the current Rengar. And Rengar top was really hurt by the ultimate changes. It's really there's no real outplay potential other than just utilizing bushes for top Rengar now, and it sucks because they said they're putting big priorities on both retaining top Rengar while focusing on jungle Rengar, but it really feels like they just kind of said screw it and just kind of pushed Rengar top to the side. The ult crits. Alright, here we are. This is the biggest problem I have with this kit. It's horrible. Horrible. I cannot express enough how horrible this part of this kit is. It's an uninteresting mechanic that it takes place of so many other things they could do in Rengar. If it didn't exist, like being able to use all of your spells mid-air, or Bola having the damage of pre-rework Rengar, and being able to fix the the amount of information that the ult gives. It's just dumb. Arguments for, from Shepard himself say they want to reward Rengar for scouting, You know, saying that while it didn't require the mechanical skill, because all you have to do now is jump, bowl in midair, and then press Q on the ground, and then you just spam W and run away and laugh. You know, he said while, yeah, it didn't have the mechanical skill that the old one-shot took, that it was just a skillful in the way of it forced Rengar to scout and, you know, force Rengar to jump on the target, but that's not true, simply put. I mean, Rengar doesn't even need the crit to really one-shot, but yeah, like, I just can't express enough how like any Rengar player, pre-work Rengar player, they know how to position while they're in the ultimate. So they'll be able to get the ult crit. It does not take just as much skill or add any real new kind of skill, because it's a skill that we already had. Because we couldn't just blindly jump in as Rengar pre-rework. We didn't have a W that let us just run away for free with the CC immunity. That, yet again, it's just an extremely flawed argument you're trying to make there. And, as well as being extremely unsatisfying for Rengar himself, it's also extremely unsatisfying for the enemies playing against, you know? They say they want to reduce the burst that Rengar is getting, or that he had, and then they just introduce this free crit, which completely undermines anything they said about, you know, wanting to increase the window of time for the enemy. And then, you know, they said they don't have necessarily have a problem with Rengar one-shotting. They just, you know, want to make sure that he goes through the appropriate hoops to do so. Well, old Rengar had that. You had to get those 5 stacks. You had to be extremely, because currently you so long as you're doing decently well, you can one-shot. Old Rengar, you had to be, you know, post nerfs, or post 6.2 nerfs, you had to be fed to be able to one-shot. You could not, you know, go 8 and 6 and be able to one-shot the enemy ADC. You couldn't do that. Not unless you were like full build and they had literally 0 defense items. Now Rengar can go bruise, you know, he can get Black Cleaver and like a Titanic and then just full tank. Or he can get like Warrior Cleaver full tank. And then he still essentially one-shots while also being so much more tankier. And it fits so much better with the ultimate. And yet again, the ult crit, just terrible, terrible, terrible. Alright, so now the good. They did achieve the goal of it having more counterplay than the old ultimate. I won't argue it has more counterplay, but it comes at such a cost of because it provides too much counterplay now. You know, yet again, I'm fine. I wouldn't say I'm completely fine with how large the indicator range is. But the really ridiculous thing is just simply the fact that they know what direction I'm coming from. Someone already suggested it, and Riot said that they even tested this out, but they decided against it, was to have, you know, the mark above everyone's head like how it was before. So, you know, they wouldn't be able to tell, you know, where you were coming from. But they said they didn't like that as they felt it just wasn't enough, or something along those lines. And it's kind of like dumb. And then epic image here for the image, just cause. And that is all. There's probably going to be a couple things I probably forgot to mention that I'll remember after this video and be mad at myself for, but for the most part I hit pretty much everything that I wanted to. I'm not gonna lie, if I just, you know, went to bed tonight and then I woke up the next day and Rengar was just completely this rework never even existed, I would be a very happy man, as would many of the people on Rengar mains. But of course that's not gonna happen. So, you know, we're gonna have to deal with what we get. But I don't want to get stuck with what we have currently, which yet again, it's just meh. Like, it doesn't feel like Rengar. It just doesn't. Like, it feels like a completely new champion. Which you might say, oh well, that's what a rework is. But it's still supposed to, feel like the same champion, just, significantly, well, maybe not even really significantly, just the kit will be different, but thematically supposed to feel very similar. And that, I feel like that was not achieved with the current Rengar. Alright, so anything else I can think of on the top of my head? I don't believe so. Oh, something that I actually did forget. I just remembered. Not being able to use Tiamat during Q or W during Q, etc. Yeah, and that's just even more clunkiness. I wish I actually added that to the Q section, but that's even more added clunkiness that I forgot to mention it. Yet again, it's just more reason for why the Q is as bad as it is. Alright, I believe that's pretty much everything. Thanks for watching. I'm sure some people disagree with my opinions, but I really think these are like the key points that need to be addressed. So yeah, because Rengar needs significant changes. The rework is a failure. Yet again, it has some good things in it, but by and large, it was a failure. They said they wanted to significantly change Rengar for the better, but they did not. He still feels incredibly frustrating to play against. With the CC immunity, him still being able to one-shot even easier than before, while not even requiring the amount of mechanical skill as before. And he just feels super unsatisfying to play because he doesn't have that, mechanical skill cap anymore. So yeah, thanks for watching. I believe I'll just end it here. You guys tell me what you think, if you agree or disagree, or if there's anything, significant that you think I missed that you don't like or do like about new Rengar, etc. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See ya.